The issue of the refugee crisis has splashed across headlines in recent weeks, also triggering a debate within the Jewish community about what it can do to help. I'm joined today by Paul Anticoni, the Chief Executive of World Jewish Relief, to discuss what the agency is doing to tackle this issue. Thanks for joining me.
Good afternoon.
Could you start by telling us about this campaign that you recently launched to deal with this issue?
Well, I think the starting point is, sadly, it's not a new issue. The cynic in me says that we've only just woken up to the issue in Britain because suddenly we see large numbers of refugees collecting on the French border in Calais looking to enter the UK. But of course, conflict in Syria has been going on for 4.5 years, and we've seen a massive refugee outpouring from conflict there and in Afghanistan since. So it's not a new issue. Neither is it a new issue for World Jewish Relief. We've been supporting Syrian refugees in and around Syria itself since Rosh Hashanah 2013. Of course, the situation's taken a different scale and complexity in some ways, as we've started to see, as we know, the single greatest refugee movement across Europe for best part of 75 years. And so the scale of the problem necessitates a different level of response. And I'm pleased that the British Jewish community has expressed an outpouring of desire to act and do something. And I think it's been challenged to know exactly what is the best thing to do. World Jewish Relief, an organization that in some ways founded 80 years ago to respond to a Jewish refugee crisis in the 1930s, has sought to do what it does best in areas that play to our strengths. And that is to meet refugee needs where they are greatest, closest to the country of origin.
What does this assistance actually entail?
Well, assistance inevitably has to be tailored to the needs of the client group. In Turkey, in the Turkish refugee camps, we have a largely resident, very much child-based caseload where longer-term inputs such as education and protection services and safe spaces and helping kids play, in addition to the provision of some basic hygiene materials and water and sanitation. In Greece, it's much more acute humanitarian interventions. People need things: shelter, clothes, blankets, food, carrier packs, sleeping bags, largely because they're getting off the boats from Turkey on the Greek islands. They need a place to stay for a week or two. They need to recharge their health and energies, and then they're moving onwards through Macedonia and Bulgaria, hoping for a better place further in Western Europe.
What about in Britain itself? What do you think about the British government's response to the crisis?
Well, I mean, on the one hand, I'm proud that the British government has led in many ways in the humanitarian support to the refugee crisis in the region. I think it is the single greatest donor to the UN and other agencies in supporting refugees close to the problem. And remember, that's where the problem is greatest. But of course, I like Britain to be a welcoming and an open environment to those requiring sanctuary and those fleeing persecution. And I would like to see our doors more open.
Now, you mentioned Jewish refugees and Jewish history. Do you think that because of this, the Jewish community has a particular obligation to help today's refugees?
I think certainly in recent days, talking to many of our supporters, there is a great resonance around our own history. My grandparents were refugees into Britain, and I think my story is similar to many of my generation and my parents' generation. We have an empathy of looking after the stranger, and I think there's a desire to assist, irrespective in some ways of the nationality of the individual. I think it's been played out very actively amongst an older and a younger generation of those within our community in recent days, an absolute outpouring of desire to do something. And I think, sadly, there hasn't been an obvious opportunity to make use of that spontaneous desire to assist, because there aren't necessarily new refugees that require assistance at the moment. But there is an enormous amount of energy of people trying to mobilize goods, donate through various different appeals, and show their support, a bit because of maybe their own personal history, a bit because I think we are a very generous and engaging community.
Okay, thank you very much, Paul.
You're welcome.